What's going on, guys? My name is KarQ. Welcome to my second channel, the KarQ Archives. Usually, I make hero tier lists for the metal ranks because that applies to the majority of players. However, by popular request, I'm going to be redoing a tier list, but based on what I see in GM in North America, in GM ranked only, not professional play and coordinated scrims, but just in ranked on who I think is meta, strong, fine, and niche. I actually cut out one of the tiers for this tier list because I really think at this elo, it's mostly an Overwatch skill. Almost every hero in this game is playable in GM top 500, and you're always going to have these random one tricks that will make the hero work and get to this rank no matter what. So keep that in mind. This is a very generic list based on what I've seen in my games as a support player in top 500. Okay. Diva. I've actually started seeing a little bit more divas this week. I wouldn't argue that she's strong. I actually think as a hero itself, she's still strong. She hasn't really received much changes since season 1. And she was really strong in season 1. However, based on the context of the meta and like, you know, how powerful the other tanks are, we'll get to in a moment. I think I'm just going to keep her in the middle of the pack in B tier. Doomfist, I'm just going to keep him a niche playable. If one tricking, if you're a really good Doomfist player at this elo, you're still going to make him work despite Roadhog and Orisa's probably dominating the shit out of you. I did the recent Doom video with Zebra and he said like, after the first nerfs came around, it was like, oh no. But then after playing it a bit more, he's definitely harder to play, but like you can still make it work if you're like a good Doom player. So we'll keep it in C tier. From S to C at these ratings, the difference between these tiers is not as big as you think it is. So take this with a grain of salt. Junkrat Queen, even with the spicy buffs at this elo, I think she's still C tier. I put her in B tier in the metal rank tier list. Despite these buffs, like I've seen a couple people try the new Junkrat Queen buff, they fall over. When you're in top 500 and playing against another top 500 Orisa or Roadhog or Ramattra, Junkrat Queen still kind of gets rolled. Based on my games that I've seen, and I've seen quite a bit of Junkrat Queen since the buff. I played probably like 80 or 100 ranked games in GM, and every time I see a Junkrat Queen, you'll have some people hard force it. If I rewatch some of my VODs and my stream, the people who started Junkrat Queen ended up switching. There's too much HP to go through with good high elo healing, the slipperiness of Mercies, the Kiriko's pocketing the shit out of them, and hard matchups with these, like they end up switching most of the time. So I'm actually going to keep Junkrat Queen in C tier at this elo. Orisa, super meta here. Not much else to say. Orisa is the most dominant tank in the metal ranks and in the high ranks. Super tanky, 4-5 spear. One thing I want to point out is that spear is probably too good. She's obviously very tanky, but think about it this way. The spear is on a 6-second cooldown, a 6-second stun. That's fast and easy to hit, and it does 60 on hit and 100 or 40 plus 40 against the wall. Sigma's rock is slower, harder to aim, and it does the same damage, 100 damage, and it's like on a way longer cooldown at 10 seconds. I think Sigma's spear is just a better rock. Although there's like other things you can argue, bigger AoE, blah, 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 blah. But like Orisa's spear is so freaking good. And if you get hit by that, you get one shot as well, basically. And you're so tanky. Orisa, super meta. Ramattra, I don't know if Ramatra's meta in the high ranks, but he's certainly better than these tanks, I would say. I definitely see quite a bit of Ramattra. I don't know if he's super meta at all, but definitely strong up here. Great Ramattra players are getting good value by like cycling the Nemesis correctly, super tanky. That movement speed buff in the hotfix patch in season 2 most definitely like buffed the shit out of him, and all that extra armor. I'm gonna keep him here. Reinhardt in this elo, still C tier. Very niche hero. There's a couple of one tricks that will force Rein. Cough, cough. You guys know who I'm talking about. Bowie and NA hit like top 10 or rank 1 the other day as Rein, and I think LH Cloudy has always made Rein work because they're just really, like I said, at these ratings, if you're a one trick, knock yourself out. But for the most part, other than those players, like most people are playing the meta stuff and the strong heroes. Okay, Roadhog, still quite meta. I would argue Orisa's probably way more meta than Roadhog right now. I think Roadhog has fallen down a peg, arguably maybe strong, but like getting randomly hooked is still so game changing that like he's probably still very meta despite Orisa kind of owning Hog right now. If they decide to play Ramattra, Hog's good into it. Hog's good into this. Hog's good into this still. Like as popular as this hero is, there will be tank players in these elos that play other tanks. So like Roadhog's still a pretty strong meta pick. So I'm going to keep him here. Sigma at this elo, similarly quite strong. Not meta, but people still play a shit ton of Sigma on Junkertown and Circuit Royale all the time in these elos. People are a bit more of a meta slave in here, so they will play based on maps and context, and that's just when they play them. So Sigma still strong. Winston, I think they say Korean ladder, they still play a lot of Winston, and I just did an Orisa tip video on my main channel, and the Orisa guest Andrew said Winston's actually like better matchup than people expect. Not because Winston counters Orisa by any means, because Winston doesn't do much to all that armor and stuff, but Winston's just know how to ignore the Orisa and annoy the shit out of their backline. Instead of C tier, I'm gonna keep him fine. Strong for some, wouldn't say strong, but like I would say this is like more of an underrated tier. So I think Winton still fine in these elos because good Wintons will make it work. Wrecking Ball in this elo. Wrecking Ball still a one-trick kind of hero. If you're just a ball main, your life's gonna be miserable dealing with a 6-second spear stun. Your grapple's on a 5-second cooldown. Good luck ever grappling everywhere. Good luck playing against Hook. Yeah, I mean, skill ceiling's high, so if you can double boop, it'd be super annoying, sure, but have fun. Zarya, underrated. Wouldn't say she's strong, but I actually think she plays quite well into the 2 meta tanks, like I said in the other tier list, right? I actually saw 0 Zarya in the first month of season 2, but since the mid-season patch last week, I've seen Zarya like once or twice a day in my rank sessions, which is certainly more than some of the other heroes. So instead of being C tier, I'm actually gonna bump her up to B. The small buff to her bubble in this mid-season patch, not like too crazy, but it made people think twice, like, maybe Zarya's not as bad as people expect. I think Zarya is really good into Hog. I think Hog actually has a lot more harder matches than people think. Annoying with the one-shots, but Zarya plays well into Junker Queen, plays well into Hog. Wouldn't say hard counters Orisa, but doesn't play terribly into it. I think B tier is quite respectable for Zarya here. I haven't talked about supports yet, but simply because Mercy is super meta right now in high elo, I think by default, Ashe is a safe pick. You see a lot of Ashes these days. Put her in strong, excuse me. And that's where she's at. Bastion, I actually don't even think he's niche anymore. I think Bastion is really good. Not really good, as in she's strong. Still more of a, like, his vulnerabilities are his ginormous hitbox and timing windows. High elo players know you wait for the transformation to finish, and then you engage onto him in that window of opportunity. However, if you're Orisa, Hog, or like Ramattra, which are 3 very common tanks, not so much Sigma, Bastion can actually melt the shit out of these tanks right now. And if played well, I actually think he's fine. Especially in the mid-season patch or season 2 patch where his ultimate is way better, where it can actually kill people now with the artillery strike. Artillery was so bad in season 1. Remember that bug with Bastion when people were firing infinite artilleries? Like, brrr, people were still living through it because it came down so slow, which is crazy to think about it. I'm gonna, now, after those buffs, reliable kills, melts these tanks, I'm gonna keep him on fine. Cassidy, I actually think kind of is just meh. The fall off range and distance. I duo with Wanted all the time. He's a Cassidy main. He firmly believes in this elo. He's C tier, but I think I kept him in B tier for metal ranks because of the simplicity of the magnetic grenade. But in these elos, you don't really see him that often. He's kind of like a comfort pick for most people. Comfort or one trick pick, but yeah, I'm gonna keep him in C tier this elo. Echo, I'd actually argue Echo's meta in these ranks. You see Echo way more. I put Echo in B tier in metal ranks. I actually think Echo's really not only strong, but really meta with Mercy everywhere. Echo's super good right now, because not every game you get an Ashe. I'll go to Sojourn after, where Sojourn's the other pick, but Echo does a lot. Like, people are good with her aerial movement, the execution on the beam. Like Roadhog, Ramattra, Orisa, and none of the tanks have any like effectiveness to deal with Echo. Like, the only tank that can really deal with Echo, I guess, is Diva. But Echoes that like know what they're doing, yeah, she's played quite commonly in NA East ranked. I will say that. So let me keep her in meta for now. Genji, I think he's just more of a one-trick hero now. Yeah, the dive meta's kind of gone away. There's no more Winstons, no more Doomfists. Like, Genji does like air against, it's so hard to kill the meta supports, which is Kiriko, Lucio, Mercy as Genji. It's super hard to kill, burst through all this armor. Ramattra as well is hard to kill. Roadhog, you have to be careful. If you get hooked, you die, but you can farm your ult off Hog, I guess, a little bit. But I think with the DPS passive going away, along with the less ammo and the lower damage, I think I'm just gonna keep him in more of like if you're like a one trick like Necros or whatever, you'll always be fine with Genji, but he's just more niche. Hanzos are a lot more reliable in this elo. I put him in C tier for the metal ranks, but I think he's fine for the players at this elo. Dragon Strike, his ultimate is really reliable against Kiriko's were in every single game. A lot of Hanzos, again, they can hit their shots more reliably here. Stationary tanks makes it easy to kind of farm your ultimate off of. They fixed his recoiled bow animation, thank God. And you know, he can wall climb, he can hold space really well if played correctly. So I'm gonna keep him in B tier. Junkrat, strong. I think early in Overwatch 1, Zarya, bubbles everywhere, you know, hard, you just charge the Zarya. So he was kind of lower early on, but technically Junkrat's mines take him higher now. He can fly farther in Overwatch 2, and people realize the assassination style is way better. Junkrat used to be just a shield spammer in Overwatch 1 against double shield, but now you just sit in a room, you flank. Because your mine jumps go way farther, they're flanking and being a threat with like your sneaky one-shot combo, and the good Junkrat players are so good at hitting the aerial ones too that I actually think Junkrat went from like the low tier all the way up to strong now. Mei, very niche in this elo. You rarely see her. Not much else to say about that. She's B tier in low ranks, but probably C tier in this elo. Super, super uncommon. Annoying, but yeah. Pharah, I think if you're like a one trick, there's a couple of Pharah players that can make her work. I think Echo is just a better Pharah if you're gonna play the air hero at this elo. Not to say it's unplayable, but I think mostly one tricks just keep mostly one tricks play Pharah. Yeah, Yazen will make him work. Yazen's, that's what I mean. If you're a one trick, you'll make any of these heroes work, okay? Reaper is just not common right now in these ratings, but I actually think he's fine. Like in theory, he's actually quite good into a lot of these tanks. I think people just find him so boring that they just don't play him. He's meta at high in Overwatch League and all that stuff always, but like arguably he's strong actually. Then if we go by that theory, he's technically quite strong into them. But just no one wants to play him. Maybe we'll keep him. He's in between. If I want to consider popularity as well in these elos, I'm gonna keep him in B actually. Sojourn. In this elo, no question about it. Sojourn's still super, super meta in GM, especially with the Mercy Pocket. Soldier is... I think he's more of like a playable hero if you're one-tricking him. But again, in these elos, because people maximize like the value out of, extract the maximum value of these heroes, I see this more often than Soldier, to be honest with you. Like people are good at these hit scans at this rating. So you'll have a couple people who, there's like one NA like East Soldier player that just like ints, but he gets a lot of damage and he just farms, but he's like a Soldier one trick. But because Sojourn players are so good at this elo, people just always just pick Sojourn. Why play Soldier when you can play Sojourn at this elo? And then if you have Sojourn, then you usually have a flex option, which is like Tracer, which we'll get to afterwards. Okay, Sombra. Sombra is niche at this elo. If you're a one trick, you'll play Sombra, but Sombra's received too many nerfs. I think I've seen like 2 Sombras in the last month. Fitzy's on break right now, and on NA East, like I don't even know if there's anybody that straight up plays it. I think I saw it once or twice, that's it. Symmetra, strong now. I severely underrated her for a long time, and the more and more I see her, the more and more annoyed I get at playing against her. Really good on a lot of maps. She will never fully be meta and picked on every map. Like the thing about these heroes is you can play them on almost any map. Maybe Echo arguable, but like Symmetra dominates control maps. But if you play Symmetra on like Junkertown or Circuit Royale or anything that has a lot of airspace, hard to maybe not Circuit Royale, but Junkertown's a good example. Might be a lot tougher to play Symmetra into it. And because like Echo is played quite a bit, Echo can get around and maneuver around the Symmetra. But on the right maps, man, Symmetra is so freaking strong. Sim mains are always being like, yeah, I told you so. I know. Torbjorn. I could argue that he's niche, but I actually think Torb is actually fine in these elos because Tracer is super meta. Okay, I'm just gonna stick Tracer here now, but let me talk about Torb. Because the turret is so annoying for Tracer to like, obviously they wait until you destroy a turret, but like Torb is like super annoying to deal with as Tracer, and his Coom is so good into Kiriko. A lot of Torbs will hold their Coom into, as soon as Kitsune Rush happens, they just splooge all over the Fox, and the Torbs are a lot more consistent, hitting their Cheetos randomly. I think I wouldn't say he's like strong, but he's certainly fine. Way more popular than some of these heroes, I would say. Widowmaker, meta in these elos. As of this last 2 weeks, I have seen so many Widowmakers. They came out of the woodworks because once people realize that they're no longer playing Doomfist and Lucio dive, like Widow is everywhere here. Every single game, people will randomly just switch into this right now. It's so annoying to deal with snipers as a support hero. All right, support player. The one-shot meta, I don't know, man. It's painful. It's painful. And the only time they'll switch off is if like the map is really unoptimal for them. But I think if we base it off the skill level of Grandmaster players, Widow, and I put Widow in B tier for metal ranks because it depends on the players. But if you're a GM1 Widow player, like you will always be super hard to play around. So we are gonna keep Widow in meta. Ana, I think Ana is actually like decent as Kiriko Ana right now. I don't know if it's strong, and I'm an Ana main chat. Well, I'm a Kiriko main lately, but yeah, I would say she's actually quite good. She's like no longer in early, before the Ana buffs and before when we were playing Kiriko Lucio only, any other support was kind of like the meh pick. But with the Ana buffs, it's the backup option, and with Hog still running around and Echoes, Ana's like a decent backup choice. Yes, Protection Suzu can cleanse the anti, but you can't anti both the sleep and the nade. I think Ana's actually quite decent. Bap, I think he's fine. I wouldn't say he's as common as Ana, but like Bap is a decent backup for me lately with the Kiriko Bap combo. Baptiste is like your DP, a secondary DPS option against survivability, but DPS option against some of these tanks. Good Baptistes in GM do a shit ton of damage, like a lot, because they know how to maximize APM with their DPS in between the healing. When you're playing like Kiriko Lucio or Kiriko Mercy and this Orisa fortifies, Kiriko can't headshot, like you don't do much to Orisa, but Baptiste can actually nonstop like shoot these tanks down and annoy the shit out of them. Bap has played a lot on certain maps in high elo still, like Circuit Royale. I think Baptiste, I don't see him that often in NA East, but I think in EU there's a couple of Bap players that have brought him to top 50 or top 20 actually, because he can do a lot. So I think he's fine. Brig, still a very niche hero in high elo. I've seen like 2 or 3 Brigs. Even with the shield buff, I've seen her like once or twice this past week. Still needs a lot of work. Why play Brig when like there's so many better options right now? We're gonna get to the better options right now. Kiriko, nothing to say about this. High elo players heal a shit ton. They build fast Kitsune rushes, win the team fights instantly. They DPS, survivability. Suzu is unreal. She does too much. As someone who's now been maining Kiriko and she's like brought me to my new ranked peak ever, I think she does too much. Ana still like has a soft spot in my heart, but I'm forced to play Kiriko every game because she's perma meta here. Okay, Lucio. I'm actually gonna put him to strong. Really good in, like, people know how to engage and disengage with speed really well, but he's not, you don't need speed as often as you think with these 3 meta tanks. You don't need it to engage. Orisa gets 50% movement speed. So Roadhog's more of a slow comp anyways. You don't need to go fast with this. Ramattra runs really quick now. Sigma's mostly for poke, so you don't have to speed engage. Engage or disengage. Disengage is nice. Like, he's still strong, but I wouldn't say he's meta because this is meta, and I think Mercy is like now taken over as the meta choice for the secondary support in high elo. Mercy with the pocket echo, Sojourn, Ashe. And because Widow was meta as well, if your Widow loses a duel, your Mercy can go res this. Roadhog is also like the one-shot meta is super strong. So like if Roadhog hooks and kills someone, Mercy goes, I will rescue you, or your fight is not over, whatever the hell she says. So, and damage boosting with the threshold of other stuff. Mercy is the meta choice here. Moira, mostly the one tricks play her. I actually think she's a fine hero, to be honest with you. Kiriko, Moira, kind of cannibalized, but I think DPS Moira is actually way better in this elos than people give her credit for it. Kind of a troll in low elos with DPS Moira because they're not doing it right, but super annoying at high elos if done right. There's a couple of one tricks that have made Moira work in top 50. Actually, I'd argue she's fine, to be honest with you. She just got buffed too with this damage orb. I've seen a little bit more Moiras lately. I really don't think she's that bad, to be honest with you. She's just boring. That's why nobody plays her, because she's boring. I'd say she's good though. Survivability is key. You can, higher yellow players, unless they're like really set on this weird play style, if they know how to balance between like staying with the tank and like hard pocketing them, but knowing when to like fade in, like this is more of an Overwatch skill where they know actually how and the timing to flank. That's important. I'm gonna keep her in fine. And Zen, the meta has slowed down. Less Lucio, less Doom, less Winston's. I mean, Tracer can still dominate the Zen, but good Zenyatta's keep a permanent Discord. Zenyatta has actually grown in popularity lately. Kiriko Zen is being played to deal with these tanks. I'm gonna put Zen in fine. I wouldn't say as strong as these 3 tanks or four supports. These are most common, and then these are like your tertiary options now. And that is what I believe to be a high elo GM ranked hero tier list. And that would be all. Did I forget to talk about Tracer? I mean, Tracer is slippery, high skill cap. Will always be good if you know how to play with her. That's all. High elo tier list out.